am thrilled to welcome Master Wei Haimin. Master Wei has won numerous awards and accolades, most notably the Plum Blossom Award, the highest honor for traditional Chinese theater in China, the National Award for Arts in Taiwan, the Global Chinese Culture Art Contribution Award, and the Outstanding Asian Artist Prize from the Society of Chinese American Culture and Arts. Master Wei Haimin started her career at the age of 13 and has been a major force in the revitalization of traditional Chinese theater. Since the 1980s, she has performed in more than 100 roles. She starred in many experimental theater productions, including Contemporary Legend Theater's rendition of Greek tragedies, in Richard Schechner's Oresteia, and Robert Wilson's Orlando. Beatrice Bichile is our interpreter. Beatrice is the author of Shakespeare's Asian Journeys, Critical Encounters, Cultural Geographies, and the Politics of Travel, and is chair of the Asian Shakespeare Association. So we have a short 3-minute video to start with, and we'll watch it, and then we will welcome Master Wei Haimin.
6年学戏的生活如鱼得水，师长们寄予厚望，总是说祖师爷赏饭吃呢。长成后，一直未间断的舞台生涯，印证了这句话无穷的力量，亦可视为此生的宿命吧。在那时空交汇处，我邂逅无数的他们，穿越古今，相会在衢臾方寸间。或温婉娴静，或机智美丽，或可敬可佩，亦或可怜可悲。他们丰富了我对人性的认知。多年来，原以为我塑造了他们，现在方才醒悟，是他们造就了我的生命。感恩爱他们和我的你们，请继续关注魏海敏。
Please join me in extending a very warm welcome to Master Wei Haimin and Beatrice Lei.
好开心，好开心！到了西岸这么有名的学府，那么今天看到现场来的又不是完全是学生，还有各方人士，觉得非常的荣幸。
I'm very honored to be here at the most prestigious school on the West Coast. And it's really great to see that a mixed audience, not just students, but also faculty and community members.
这次的访美的演讲呢，我是基于在疫情期间，觉得自己身为一个演员好像没什么作用了，于是就开始有一些计划。所以一开放呢，我就开始来做这个事情，因为我觉得，我一直都在演出啊，演出是可以有更多的观众，但是我想。我能够去向更多的观众来介绍京剧，也是一件非常非常重要的事情。所以呢，我就来进行，而且我是很希望能够向各位说一下，梅兰芳大师1920年代开始，这个创造了京剧的黄金年代。那么经过了这个100年，我们这一代的演员在这个时候做了一些什么事情？我想跟大家汇报一下。
This project of touring the US and Canada originated in my puzzlement during my confusion during COVID, because I, as an actor, have been performing on stage all my life, but then due to COVID, I became useless in a way. And I started to think, what else can I do? So I was planning to, I think in addition to putting on performances, I could also promote and explain to more people the art of Beijing opera. And also, 100 years later, after the master Mei Lanfang, so I want to reflect upon how much we have done and how much more we can be doing.
说的没有唱好听，我待会儿就唱给你们听啊。但是呢，但是我想，在现场还是有很多的观众对于京剧还是陌生的，所以呢，我准备了很棒的这个京剧的知识方面的啊，短短的，很简短，但是可以让你们一目了然。我们现在就把这个工作呢交给最棒的这个雷老师来帮我们做翻译，谢谢。
If you think I spoke well, I could sing even better. But let me give you a little background knowledge of Jingju so you can better appreciate my demonstration. So I'm Beatrice Lei, and I'm a Shakespearean by profession. So I came to know Master Wei Haiming's art through her Shakespearean adaptation. And since then, I fell in love and became a biggest fan. And I had the greatest opportunity while I was in Taipei to take some lessons from her. So I consider myself a student. And in Chinese, you say, students should serve the teacher unconditionally, right? 有事弟子服其劳. So I am very honored to be put to service today to be her interpreter. And let me give you a little background. So Jingju is one of the 300 plus genres of traditional Chinese theater. It developed in late 18th century in the capital city of Beijing. And as a highly developed urban theater, it became widely popular. It became the national drama and was the court's favorite entertainment. And then here are the 13 most famous actors. And then you can see there are 4 female roles, this, and this, right? And in particular, this is Mei Lanfang, Master Mei Lanfang's grandfather. And he has a nickname of Chubby Mei. So, and he was a favorite actor of Emperor Dowager Cixi. Jingju as a theater genre, it's unique. Actually, this can apply to most traditional Chinese theater genres. It combines drama with storytelling and singing, dancing, acrobatics, martial arts. So it's a total theater that is distinct from traditional Western theater. As a Shakespearean, I can tell you the difference, right? We study Shakespeare. Shakespeare wrote Hamlet, Macbeth, King Lear, blah, blah, blah. So we call it Shakespearean theater because Shakespeare wrote it, right? Who wrote Farewell, My Concubine? Most people don't know and don't care, right? But who performed Hamlet or Macbeth in Shakespeare's time? Most people don't know and don't care. But we know that Mei Lanfang did The Farewell, My Concubine, and other famous titles. So that's the difference. It's not playwright-centered, as in Shakespeare's case, but it's actor-centered. Also, it's not realist or naturalist. It's anti-realist and anti-naturalist. It's expressionist and stylized. Okay, next. And then there are 4 role types because everyone is unique and we all share similarities. But in Jingju, it essentialized character traits into 4 main role types. That is Sheng, male role, Dan, female role, Jing, painted face, and Chou, clowns, right? But because of the society's restriction of women's role in public, because in Qing Dynasty, it was a small group, a small elite group, a minority ruling the mass. And theater was used as a form of indoctrination and was very strictly regulated. And women are not allowed on or off stage. So all 4 role types were played by men. And that's why when you saw just now the 13 characters, the chubby Mei, they don't seem particularly attractive because they're men playing female roles. Okay, 老师你要讲花脸。
哦，对，这里面呢，其实这4个呢，只是就是一个形象，但是事实上，京剧的表演是分文戏跟武戏，所以在这里呢，我们没有办法全部都，但是它的生旦净丑这4种类型里面，还包含了老的、年轻的。或者说是女生这个旦行呢，就是有文静的，有这个活泼的，还有武功的反正每一种这个行当，它都是有更多的不同的这个表演的方式。
So these are the 4 large groups, but within each group, there are also subdivision. There are civil roles and martial roles, and then more elegant lady and country girls. So there are different subfields.
那么这里面最特别的就是花脸的这个脸谱了这个是外国人特别喜欢的，就觉得这个脸。那么事实上这是有故事的。那么据说有一位国王。兰陵王，她长得很漂亮，但是她武功很好。她去打仗的时候呢，就被敌人嘲笑说她长得太娘了。那么她就后来就戴了一个很凶恶的面具去打仗。所以后人演绎她的故事呢，就戴上这个面具来做表演。但是因为京剧舞台呢要唱要念，所以我们就直接把这个脸谱画在脸上。
Okay, so in particular, the painted face. Are most important because actually legend has there was a king of Lanling who was a great warrior. But because he was too good looking, he had too much feminine beauty, so people laughed at him by not being manly enough. And so he had to put on a mask when he go into battle. And later when people dramatize his stories, they put a mask on. But it's not, it's a little bit awkward for you to do singing and dancing with a big mask on. So they painted the mask on the face, and that's how this came into existence.
那么这个脸谱呢，直接画在脸上它有一个好处，就是我们人是有肌肉的我们这个脸一动那个图案就会跟着动就好像那个人真的长得就是这样的。那么它就区分了生行。生行就是一种我们一般看到的这个温文儒雅的男士，但是那种很粗犷的，然后那种强盗了之类的，你要怎么表示呢？所以用了这个花脸呢，它就真的能够把这种角色呢更好的来这个呈现出来。所以在过去有很多的名角有这个什么活张飞活曹操之称都是因为他这个脸谱又画得好，他的表演又跟他的脸谱又结合了在一起。
So as an actor, as a 花脸 painted face actor, you act with your facial muscles, right? You need to train your muscle and act, move them in precision. And so with the muscle movement, it's possible, people think that the historical figure actually came into life. And then so you would call them Zhang Fei or who
Cao Cao
alive, as if they could bring back the historical figure. Okay, so as I said, it was an all-male theater. And as a result, female roles were unimportant and unattractive until Mei Lanfang changed it. So he reimagined Jingju by not only like enlarging female roles, but elevating them, giving them a lot more prominence and nobility. So he created wonderful, arresting female roles of a great variety. And in particular, he raised the artistic level by taking inspiration from ancient literature, Buddhist scripture, painting. So it became not just a popular entertainment, but a form of art. And then he, as a man, impersonating women, and was extremely beautiful. He became recognized as the ideal beauty. So he is like beauty embodied, beauty personified. And performance in his school is called, in his style is called the Mei School.
我想补充一点啊，梅兰芳大师他是生于清末啊，成名于民国。那么在这个满清灭亡之后，民国开始，这整个社会的风气改变了，女性主义也跟着就抬头了。所以呢，有很多的事情呢，在这个京剧里面也是一样，就是女性的角色的这个旦行的表演呢，开始受到了瞩目了。所以我们说，一个演员要成功啊，天时地利人和都必须要具备的。所以我想，梅兰芳就是最佳的一个例证了，就是因为他生的时候太好了，他生在一个大时代的转换的时候。
Okay, so Mei Lanfang was born in late Qing dynasty, and became famous in the early Republican era. And that was the time of great changes, political changes, social changes, women's movement, women's liberation. So in society, women started to take more important roles, and he caught this wave of his time. So he was, to succeed, you kind of need to be in the right time at the right moment of history, and then he was lucky.
那么梅兰芳大师在这个民国初年开始红呢，我觉得其实他有几样事情，我觉得跟大家做一个分享啊。我觉得第一个呢，就是他是一位男士，所以当他在做一个转换成女性的这个角度上来看呢，他做到了一个极致。就像我们今天听歌剧，歌剧的演员他有些长得很胖啊。但是我们不会去介意他的身材，我们知道他的声音是他的艺术的追求的极致，所以我认为梅兰芳大师他的男变女的这件事情，他做到了一个极致，然后再加上他是男性，所以在当时的社会上还是非常有地位的。当时的女演员大概到16、17岁就被人家抢走了，各位大概也有听说啊，有很多军阀。直接就到了后台，把枪往化妆台上一拍，走啊！所以女性演员在那个时候想要建立风格，那是不可能的，因为女性要独立，在那个时候都是不可能的。
So Mei Lanfang was a unique example as a man playing women. He actually perfected femininity. Unlike opera singers, opera singers who act with their voice. And then, they may not have great figures. But Mei Lanfang perfected the femininity in every way, with his voice, with his body, with his movement. And also, importantly, his success was due to his real gender. He was a man. Why? Because as a man, he had more power. He had a higher social status. Back then, actresses were waiting for people to grab, like the warlords would just take a gun to the backstage and say, "You're mine." And so young girls, 16, 17 years old, actresses, did not have any power, were for anyone to take. But as a man, Mei Lanfang could proclaim that this is art, and that's unique.
所以他那个时代呢，也就建立了所谓的女性表演的风格。所以1927年的时候选出了4大名旦，其实每一个都是男人，但是他们扮演的女人都是各不相同的。
So in 1927, they elected the 4 best actors, 前旦, so male actors playing females. And 梅兰芳 was one of them. And each of them has a unique style.
我觉得这个就好像上天给我们的礼物一样啊。那么接下来我们再来看看梅兰芳在各个不同的时期所创造的新戏。
So these are the various creations by 梅兰芳。
中间这个呢，就是他在最年轻的时候，也就是民国初年的时候呢，他就到过上海，看了上海这个整个这个港口的城市是不一样的。于是他回到北京就开始创造新戏。那么他的创造的新戏的题材呢，都是当时社会发生的一些冲撞式的一种这个就是文化上的冲撞的很多的事情都在那个时候在这个头条新闻上面有，于是他们就把那些新闻变成一个戏剧的演出，所以那个时候叫现代戏。
So the middle picture was the youngest Mei Lanfang when he first went to Shanghai. He was from Beijing, and Beijing was the political center. Meanwhile, Shanghai was the commercial center and a lot more Western and open to the world. So when he went to Shanghai, he saw the new world, new life. And then there were so many stories in the news. So he adapted some news stories and created social drama. You could imagine like divorce, domestic violence, forced marriage, that kind of social drama.
所以呢，他这个戏呢，就演得非常的红火啊，观众非常的多啊，他们都很爱看这种戏。但是呢，演了几年之后呢，梅兰芳就发现了这些戏啊，他们所有的京剧的唱念做打的功夫啊，在这个现代戏的这个故事里面完全用不上了。
So these pieces were very popular, but after a few years, Mei Lanfang realized that his training as a Jingju actor, all the techniques he had learned as a kid, became like useless on stage with the realist modern drama.
所以呢，他第2个阶段就开始创造古装戏啊。这个古装造型呢是梅兰芳创造的，以前是没有的。以前的衣服都是宽宽大大的啊，这个多胖多瘦、多高多矮都可以穿的。那么这个时候呢，他就开始有了女性的曲线曲线，然后这个整个的头饰呢也比较怎么讲，就比较好看了，跟那个大头的扮相是有差别的。那么这个古装戏呢，它就创造了10出。这个古装戏每一出戏的唱腔非常好听，然后变成一整套的这个唱腔，然后它还有加上舞蹈。于是呢，这样的创作呢，就使得它每一个角色让大家记忆深刻，而有了所谓的梅式的审美观。
And then he moved on to create the so-called period dress plays, like the picture on the left. If you have some impression of Jingju, you would know that the female roles, they all wear straight gowns, not showing your figure. But he introduced the curve, the waistline, and also he innovated the headdress. So this really made him different. These were like so refreshing for the audience. And then he created 10 plays, each with an arresting character, with dance or like water sleeve. Each one is so different from the traditional repertoire. And then this established his art as the May School.
所以大家都说梅兰芳的戏是非仙即后啊，就是不是仙子就是皇后。那么这张照片各位就可以看到，这是徐悲鸿的画，他画的是天女散花的，就是飞天的故事。
Okay, so people say his roles are either celestial or imperial. And then this image was actually taken from Xu Beihong's painting of a goddess spreading flowers.
那么，所以我觉得梅兰芳就是借由这个古装戏把中国 中国人对于上千年的这个美女的这个想象啊，在舞台上借由梅兰芳的表演，他们得到了一个满足。
So he fulfilled Chinese people's imagination, fantasy about women, beautiful women, for a millennium. Like, what is a real beauty? And he showed you.
那么第三个阶段呢，就是中国传统的历史当中的一些女性的角色啊，各式各样的角色。所以呢，梅兰芳这一辈子可以说他创作不辍啊，从年轻到老一直都在创作，所以他的这个创作的能力以及创作的境界高度都是其他人很难比拟的。
And then he also did historical plays like the one on the right. So throughout his career, he kept innovating and creating like new plays and new roles and new styles. And this continuous creation was remarkable.
这个就是1930年梅兰芳到美国把京剧带到这里来。那么他画了上千幅的这个有关于京剧的这个图案啊，然后呢，也安排了各种不同的这种小小的段子，让这个美国的朋友呢能够更清楚地看到京剧的表演是这么样的有特色。
So in 1930, Mei Lanfang did a U.S. tour, and as you could see that he met important figures. And to prepare for this trip, he created pictures of like the full backstage, including instrument and costume pieces, to introduce to the Western audience the art of Jingju. And also he prepared like a sampling of episodes to showcase the diversity of Jingju art.
那我们说了那么多梅兰芳的好，现在我就来示范一段梅兰芳的唱段。
Okay, so now I will demonstrate what Mei Lanfang's art is. And this piece is taken from the play The Drunken Concubine. And I have to say, I really hate the person who did this translation 100 years ago to translate this play as The Drunken Concubine, which, if you don't know anything, it sounds just awful, right? It sounds awful. But actually, 贵妃醉酒, Yang Guifei, or the royal consort Yang, was supposed to be like one of the most beautiful women in Chinese history. And then she was the Emperor Tang Minghuang's favorite. So the story of this play was like Yang Guifei and Tang Minghuang had a fight. And then so the emperor hasn't visited her for a while, and she was like, what should I do? And then all of a sudden, the king summoned her. So she was like on her way to the date, like really exciting, and thinking that I'm going to be returned to the king's favor. And so just imagine like it's a woman going to meet her lover, and that's the emotion of this aria. 老师，你要示范那个兔的。
对对。
So and also, as I said, Jingju is anti-realist and anti-naturalist. So even though the concubine is drunken, which if you think about naturalist or realist performance, it would be completely disgusting. No one wants to see that, right? But so what happens is the king eventually didn't show up. So she was like, oh, and then she got drunk. And that's how she got drunk. That's how this title of the play. And so she got drunk. So now Master Wei Haimin will demonstrate a little bit at how do you make a drunk woman beautiful. Okay.
谢谢。这个戏是梅兰芳戏里面一个歌舞剧的形态。它完全都是音乐来串联的，所以它所有的动作、所有的声腔都在显示出他对这件事情的不快乐，所以呢，要演出1个多小时。
So this is the style is analogous to like a musical. The music plays throughout. So the whole over an hour long play is about her emotion.
那么他在这个吐的时候呢，他也必须要展现出贵妃的这个贵气，就是他吐不能像
So that's realist
他不能
puking.
像别人这样子吐啊。他怎么吐呢？啊，我现在来
This
示
is
范
how
一下
Yang。Guifei would puke.
这个是他的醉部，
No, she's drunk. As you can see.
不太舒服。
I don't feel well.
想要吐，
I want to puke.
想要吐，
I want to puke.
我就吐了，
I puke.
我就吐了。
Okay. So now we'll demonstrate the part before she's drunk. She's hoping to meet her lover. Okay.
我要摆架了啊，等我念一句摆架啊。摆架。谢谢。梅派的所有的唱念做打，各位都可以感受到它就是把中国传统的女性的美展现的极致。那么她的手势啊，她的扮相， 它的整个贴片子的贴法，还有它的身段，这些都在显示出她是一个100%的女性。
So the May School, May Lanfang's performance, tried to emulate women 100%, and not just women, but the most beautiful woman, right? From his headpiece and facial makeup and the curve and the costumes and movement, hand gesture, etc.
那么，但是他是男人，我是女性。那我现在要介绍我了，我是魏海敏。谢谢。我是11岁进到剧校学戏，那么13岁我就上台唱主角了。这就是《木柯站》啊，这是我这个13岁那一年上台演出的一张剧照。可以说我在剧校的生活呢是非常非常的快乐的啊，因为没有了一般的小学的这种考试啊、念书啊这些，每天在学校里面就是学新的东西，所以我真的就是如鱼得水的感觉。
So, but Mei Lanfang was a man trying to be a woman, and I am a woman, right? So I actually entered the theater school at age 11 to learn how to do Jingju. And then 2 years later, when I was 13, that was the first time I played the lead, and I've been playing the lead ever since. In school, I was actually very happy because unlike normal school, there were no tests and no academic stress. So I was like a fish in water. I really enjoyed it.
但是我在毕业的时候，我们是7年毕业，2年实习，总共9年。毕业之后，我开始对人生产生了一个困惑。我觉得京剧好像跟这个时代脱节了。我能够以这个京剧为我的事业吗？其实我当时非常的困惑。
But when I graduated, I felt different. It was 7 years of school and 2-year intern. So after 9 years, I graduated. I felt confused because Jingju seemed to be totally cut off from real life, from modern life. Can I really make my career in Jingju? Is there any future for Jingju?
但这个时候，上天好像给我开了一扇窗。就在1982年，我看到了梅兰芳的儿子梅葆玖老师在香港的演出。当时我就觉得被震撼到了，好像在我面前一扇京剧的那个殿堂打开了。
I was really lucky. It was a God-sent opportunity that around that time I saw the performance of Mei Baojiu, who is Mei Lanfang's son and heir. And I was like, wow, it completely blew my mind. And I realized that, okay, the hall of Jingju, the real art of Jingju is there, and that's something I have to pursue.
也就是说，他把唱念做打呢，都融合在了一个非常自然的那个状态里面。但是他的技巧以及他的那个声音的那种，又是非常非常的棒，就让你觉得那个艺术是一个好像真实所发生的一个古代的人站在舞台上面给我的这个感觉。所以我当时就决定我要去拜师。
What's amazing is he did it so naturally. Like suppose you're trying to hit a high pitch, you try very hard, you strive to do this or that. But even though he was singing and dancing so perfectly, but it seemed so natural, as if the historical figure actually came into life. So at that time, I vowed that I have to learn Jingju from him.
但是那个时候两岸是隔绝的，我没有办法去啊，一直到1991年我才去拜师。那么在1991年呢，在北京拜了一个盛大的拜师典礼，好像在那个时候我也把两岸隔绝的这个文化的血脉好像也连接起来了。
But I couldn't because back then Taiwan and China there was no communication in between. We know in 1949 Chiang Kai-shek and his nationalist army government came to Taiwan. So in Taiwan we call it Republic of China. And in China, they established a new People's Republic of China, and they were enemies. So there was no communication, completely cut off for decades. So even though I would love to take lessons from Mei Baojiu, I couldn't until 1991, when the door was finally open, and then I could do it. So there was a grand ceremony that we performed in Beijing for him to take me as his disciple officially. And so I felt that I also played a role in cross-strait communication.
那么接下来的10-20年呢，我就不断的往返两岸，就是深挖梅派的表演，深刻的去挖掘梅派他在塑造角色时候的一个重点在哪里。好像渐渐的呢，我就比较能够把梅派的表演呢，就能够融会贯通在我的身上。所以当时呢，我就有几乎把梅派几个大概10-20出戏，把它整理的，就是重新的把每一个气口、呼吸、动作、表演都把它重新的又制作了一下。
So for the 10, 20 years following that, I've been traveling back and forth across the Taiwan Strait, and I relearned all the pieces, including every breath and every tiny movement. And I feel like that I finally mastered what the Mei School art is.
那么接下来这一章呢，我们就看到这个是不同的梅派系的装扮啊，这些都是中国古典的那种美丽的女性，端庄大方啊，也就是把梅派的那种很大气的女子的形象呢，都呈现在这些角色里面。
So these are the famous Mei School female roles. And then there are ladies, magnificent, aristocratic, refined, elegant.
但是呢，在我生命里面还有一个很大的转捩点，就是在1986年，当时我还没有去拜师，但是当然已经开始去不断的去听梅派的东西。但是在那个时候，台湾就是80年代的经济起飞，也带着我们的戏剧的表演呢，也跟着有很多很多不同的创作。那么在那个时候，我们就创作了一出莎士比亚马克白所改编的叫《欲望城国》。
But even before that, in 1986, I did something completely new. Back then, in the 1980s, there was this economic boom in Taiwan, and with all the social changes. And so every art form, every art group is trying to do something different. So we adapted Shakespeare's Macbeth in the Jingju form.
那么当时就是一腔热血，觉得我们是年轻人，我们应该要做一些不一样的东西。但是当我拿到剧本的时候，我才发现我要演一个坏女人。
So I was at first very excited and enthusiastic and say, oh yeah, I'm going to do something new. I was young, I didn't know anything. But when I got the script, I'm like, uh-oh, I'm going to play a bad woman.
说到这一点呢，大概各位不会相信啊，说在台上演好人跟演坏人的差别很大吗？绝对是很大的。因为我从小到就是从11岁开始学习，到我这个大概20几岁啊，30岁不到的时候，那么我的认知，女性都是美好的，都是端庄的，都是这个秀气的啊。几时会想到我会去演一个那么邪恶的、很恶毒的这种女人？真的，我连眼睛都不晓得该看什么地方了啊。
You would think that as an actor, of course, what's the difference between playing good roles or bad roles? But in my personal experience, ever since I started learning Jingju, all the female roles I played were like refined ladies from good background, well-educated, elegant, and polite, and all that. So now I need to play a bad woman. I don't even know where to put my eyes.
各位知道京剧的表演是唱念做打嘛，所以我们在一出戏里面有唱的有念的，所以当我们在排这个角色或者在背诵这个角色的时候，都要带动作、带唱腔一起背的，所以你不可能会突然出现一个什么样的坏的眼神嘛，因为你演的是好人嘛，所以这些东西就深印在我的骨血里面了。所以当我要演一个坏人的时候呢，我就不知道该怎么办。 所以我当时呢花了2、3年的功夫呢，去重新的为自己来塑造一个不太一样的女性。
Because Jingju is a holistic performance, so you present, you externalize your character through your headdress and your facial expression and everything. So how you can't just be bad, right? You need to be bad with your eyes, with your muscles, with your sleeves, with your shoes. And how do I do that? So it took me 2-3 years to create this new bad woman.
我们接下来看一下她的服装啊，这个是
Yeah, so that's the costume.
刚刚那个是在那个大宴，然后这个是洗手啊，这个是劝她丈夫
So
去
that's
杀人
hand
的
washing
啊。
scene.
那么我们这出戏呢，它不是用莎士比亚的那个英国的背景，我们是把它搬到中国，变成东周列国时代的故事。
So we reset the story in ancient China, the warring period.
所以呢，这个服装呢，它是经过考证的。那个上衣呢是没有那个白色的水袖啊，就是一个平切的这边一个大的水袖。所以当你在穿上这个的时候，你的动作就完全没有办法有这个就是这个水袖啊，你就变成是要这样子或者这样子来摆了，那个动作是绝对是完全不一样的了。
And the costume design was historically accurate. So with wide sleeves and without long water sleeves that you often see in Jingju, on Jingju stage. So many of the movement, the hand movement we were used to became useless. You cannot express your emotions or motivations with your sleeves in the special technique that you have learned. You have to do something completely different.
那这个裙子呢，它是一片式的啊，长长的围在身上，围到最后呢，就会有一个长长的尾巴。
And the skirt was wrapped up around and around with a long tail in the back.
哎，我只能往前走，不能往后退，
I could only walk forward, not backward, because I would step on my skirt.
我就会踩到了啊。所以呢，我就穿着这个裙子的时候，就是我要到那个地方去，我就要用迂回的方
Yeah,
式
if I go there, I have to go.
要
by the
转圈
circle
走，哈，就要用这样子的方式。那么后来呢，我就觉得说，哎，我看到了这个 Kabuki 的表演啊，我觉得好像可以借鉴一下，因为 Kabuki 不是喜欢那个甩那个下摆啊，那我就发现，哎，我说不定是可以靠这个甩下摆的这个动作啊，为自己打造一个美丽的这种蛇蝎女人的形象。
Okay, and then I saw Kabuki and I got inspired. They would use this kick movement. And then I said, maybe I could do that to show a beautiful serpent woman.
好。
So she's going to demonstrate
我
how
现
she
在就
does
来
it.
穿这件衣服，这件是并不是我上台穿的啊，
This is not the real costume.
但是它有一点点像啊，
It's similar enough for demonstration purposes.
就是那个袖子蛮像的哈。
The large with the wide sleeves
然后呢，它又有这个可以
and long tail.
可以转这个下摆的这个感觉，所以呢，我现在就来示范啊，我们怎么样的来这个借由不同的服装呢，来让自己塑造了不同的角色。这个在我们传统京剧来讲呢是没有的，因为我们传统的戏曲都是学习模仿啊，模仿老师教你怎么去学习。那么，但是这个是要你自己来塑造角色。 这是比较西方戏剧的一种塑造角色的方法。
So traditionally in school, you just imitated your teacher. That's how you learn. But this time, I had to really create my own style and then use my costume to perform. And this was a brand new experience and challenging as well.
所以呢，我现在就来示范一段啊，我怎么在这一场怂恿我的这个相国的丈夫啊，去把国王杀掉啊。但是呢，我在现场我需要一个朋友来帮我念一下敖淑珍的词。
Okay, so now I'm going to demonstrate. Actually, this is adapted from Shakespeare's Act 1, Scene 5, when Lady Macbeth is trying to convince Macbeth to do the assassination, and then so the conversation between the husband and wife. But we need a volunteer to act Macbeth. Is there some Chinese speaking? We want a
有没有人
man.
可以
We
念？
want a
啊
Macbeth.
哦，这边也有，有2位耶，
我
那边还有嘞，
好多
有好多位了，你们一起念好了，好不好？啊，你们就念这个熬熟蒸，熬
So
熟
Ao
蒸的
Shuzheng is
这个
Macbeth.
这个
and
词。
Lady Ao Shu is Lady Macbeth.
哎，那个
So
这
who-
怎么办？有这么多人
这么多
来
人，
那这位你们坐的比较近比较好，好不好？你可以吗？你就坐在你的位置上，不要动，哎，你就坐在你的位置上，好吧？
Okay.
OK， 那个要不要给他麦克风？好。好，各位感受一下它的尾巴啊。啊，想过，我来问你，那日在森林与鬼魅之时，哎呦，对不起，这个就是我原本的啊，会踩到裙子。我再来一次啊。敖淑珍坐在这里啊，想过，我来问你，那日在森林与鬼魅之时，可有人与你同行？
有，孟庭将军与我同行。你问此做啥呢？
倘若那孟庭为报自身，将鬼魅之言告知大王，想过只恐你难逃杀身之祸。
哎，我与孟庭数年来驰骋疆场，生死相交，他怎会陷害于我？不会的，哎，不会的。
想过，有道是知人知面不知心。我料那季后早已知晓，顷刻就要派兵前来。到那时，只恐你我夫妻大祸难逃。
我却不信。夫人
这时候，国王真的来了。哈，这个国王来了呢，原来是要叫敖淑珍去这个除掉另外一个将军啊。那么
Duncan actually arrived. Now Duncan arrived, and then so they were suspecting that Banquo, whether they can trust Banquo.
哎，这个时候夫人又上来了。
夫人，你可知大王到此何事？明示行为涉猎，实乃调我人马，讨伐北城叛逆临江伯。
哦，既是讨伐叛逆，为何不见孟庭将军到来？
哦，我与孟庭兵分两路，我军先行，孟庭随后接应，哈哈哈。
随后接应么？相公，我看此事其中有诈。
怎见得？
相公，我料那孟庭已将鬼魅之言告知大王，只是碍于相国武艺高强，难以制服，才定下这调虎离山之计，亲自到此取信于你。待等相国明日驰骋迎战之时，那孟庭率兵与城内大王御林军里应外合。哎呀，相国啊，相国，到那时你连命丧谁手都还不明白。
I think you can see the great difference, like how much she has come. She has traveled from that beautiful lady to this, right? And she had to create everything. She had to invent everything, the way she speaks, the way she moves, where she looks, and what she does with her hand and her skirt and shoes and everything. So it was a total creation.
我只想问你们，我有没有很坏？
I just want to ask you, am I bad enough?
好，那么我这次巡回的演讲呢，特别带来的2出戏呢，来示范，它都是以这个国外就是西方的剧本，这个是《马克白》，那么另外一个呢就是希腊悲剧《梅迪亚》啊，《梅迪亚》。梅迪亚这个故事，我不晓得各位知道吗？这个女人就更残暴了啊！她是这个为了报复丈夫的抛弃，到最后把自己2个小孩的头割下来，然后去告诉他：你伤害了我，你不觉得我的痛苦吗？那你现在看到孩子的头，你痛苦吗？那就是我的痛苦。
Okay, so this time we actually did a lot of traditional titles. We did Chinese stories, original plays based on Chinese stories. But for this trip, I brought 2 Western titles, so I don't need to explain too much background to you. And the second play I will demonstrate is Medea. And as you know, Medea as a character is even larger than Lady Macbeth, right? Because she feels betrayed and hurt by her husband Jason, for whom she sacrificed everything for. And then so in the end, before his wedding day, she killed their 2 children and say to Jason, like, now do you know what pain is? Now do you know how much pain I feel? The pain you feel is the pain I feel.
这部戏是一个痛苦大全呐、就是被抛弃者的一个痛苦大全。那么这个戏呢，跟传统京剧里面的唯美的女性啊，那更是南辕北辙了，完全不一样了。
So as a role, Medea is completely different from the imperial concubine or other ladies, like because of her passion and her insanity and her cruelty toward her own children.
所以我们一开始的时候，就这个戏的基本的架构呢，就没有用到京剧的锣鼓、京剧的音乐，我们完全都不用了，因为那个东西符号太强了，跟这个戏会冲撞。
So we decided to abandon Jingju string and percussion music completely because simply those signals no longer resonate with this powerful, passionate play.
那么我们也把这个就是梅迪亚的这个，它是本来是雅典嘛，是不是？我们就搬到了我们的这个楼兰，所以叫楼兰女。
So we moved the story from ancient Greece to Lowland in ancient China.
那么这个楼兰就是在大漠西域的这个生活的女子。那么后来我们在这个戏里面，虽然唱腔不多，但是这个唱腔非常有特色啊，它就是有一种大漠的一个感觉。那么这个戏里面的唱腔呢，也是我自己编的啊，就当时的这个作曲者呢，就拿了蒙古的长调啊、呼麦的这个音乐呢，让我们去听、去熏陶，然后我就编出了今天要唱给各位听的这个唱腔。
So Lowland is in the western China in the desert. So we didn't have traditional Jingji music for reference. Instead, we listened to a lot of Mongolian music, ethnic music from Western Asia, Western Asia, Central Asia. And then the composer just gave us instrumental music and then say, arrange your own singing part. So that's how I developed my singing.
那么在初拿到这个戏的时候，我也觉得很难，就是我如何去演这样子一个满腔都是怒火的，就整个人都是在仇恨当中的一个女子，她我觉得连讲话都是跟普通人不同的了啊。后来当时呢，我们的这个导演呢就教了我一个方法，一个西方训练演员的方式。那我来看看要怎么样来感受一下啊，就是 他叫我推着一个桌子，推着一个桌子。
Okay, so before, how do I create this role? This woman, she's so full of hate, powerful hatred. And so how would she talk? Can she talk like a lady? Can she talk like, does she speak standard Mandarin? How does she talk? So I had to, figure out how she talks. So our director told me to use a table as a tool.
啊，当时他叫我推着一个桌
So
子，
just
我就
push the table like
假装
that
这个啊
and
推
try
着
to
它
push it.
啊，你为什么要这样子对我？你今天晚上吃什么？
So why are you doing this to me? So I need to be speak very forcefully, just like I'm pushing the table with all my strength.
哎，就当这种训练过后啊，哎，我就发现了这个人物的人物感就出来了，就是他，就他会像野兽一样的那种痛苦的感觉。所以呢，后来我们这个戏排出来之后呢，在1993年首演。 当时也是受到很多朋友们的喜欢。各位可以看到这个服装啊，这是叶景天设计的服装，这是他第一部舞台剧的服装。
So yeah, I finally developed this animal-like roaring speaking style. And then you could also see the costume design was by Tim Yip, who designed a Crouching Tiger and won an Oscar. And this was his first stage debut.
其实他是照着我们中国古代的那个头饰啊、服装啊，然后去再重新的再塑造的啊。好，
So he recreated using elements from ancient China. This was a new creation.
哎，当时的服装看起来是奇装异服哦，就是说是好像是另外一个星球的人一样。
The costume would look like strange and bizarre, as if the characters came from outer space.
而且我在台上要换3次衣服，不下台，在台上换，
And I changed costumes 3 times on stage.
所以我是1个小时45分钟没有下台。哦，
So
完
for the entire performance, an hour and 45 minutes, I did not leave the stage.
所以即便没有京剧的这些元素，但是如果我不是一个从小就学京剧的演员的话，我绝对唱不了。
So even though we did not use the Jingju elements, we did not copy any and just use them straight like that. But without my Jingju training, I would not be able to perform this.
好，那么我接下来来示范这段唱腔呢，没有那么可怕，哈哈，它还挺好听的。那么这段唱呢，就是梅迪亚跟杰森吵架啊，就是为了要把他赶走的这件事情，两个人吵架，然后气得浑身发抖，然后颓然倒在地下。那么他就突然想到了他的故乡，想到了罗布泊那个他生长的地方，想到了自己年轻的时候，想到自己对爱情的憧憬，就是那些生命最美好的东西，在这一刹那通通都没有了。
So don't worry, this aria is not scary. This happens at the moment. So after her fight with Jason, Medea collapsed and was so full of anger and remorse and hate. And then she recollects her hometown, which she abandoned for Jason's sake, and her youth, and her old dreams for love and marriage and future and everything is gone. So this is the moment.
谢谢。
So this was not just a new character, but also musically, it was groundbreaking. So formally, musically, it was groundbreaking. It was completely departed from the Jingju traditional Chinese music, and it's the freestyle. And then, yeah, it's great.
我现在在台湾，大家都叫我恶女达人。
Now in Taiwan, I'm the famous Batwoman.
OK，好，那么我刚刚所带来的，这些就是我这次的演讲的内容，非常感谢大家跟我一起分享。那我想接下来呢，再介绍一下我在这么多年来跟几位美国导演的合作呢，让我的这个整个戏剧的视野有了很大的不同。
Also, I would like to talk about briefly that my collaborations with some international directors, and they opened my eyes.
介绍。
Okay, next. This is with American director Richard Schreckner on Oresteia. And Robert Wilson, Orlando.
哎，我们做的欧兰朵哦，你
And
看看
that's
他，
Robert Wilson in the
他在
background.
后面摆一个京剧的
He's
动作。
learning Jingju gesture.
他也向我学习了很多，我也向他学习
We
很
learn
多。
from each other.
好，这是他变成女人的样子。
So, after Orlando transforms into a woman.
好，
And Ong Kim Sen, Singaporean director. 1,000 stages, yet I have never quite lived because on the stage I'm either the imperial consort or a goddess or a warrior, but I'm never Wei Haiming, and so I never really quite lived. So this is a personal story. This is an autobiographic story.
这是我最新的一个创作，它也是用独角戏的方式啊，在2021年演出。那么，这是演我的故事，就是我和台湾这个社会所发生的一些事情，以及我自己身边所有的事情，所以它有点记录剧场的模式。
So it's a solo performance, and it's like a documentary recording me in this changing world at that contemporary moment.
我觉得是蛮有意思的，因为我一直都在演别人、演别的角色，我都花很多脑子去认识其他的人物，但是对于自己的认识好像真的是比较少，所以透过这个戏呢，也开始有了不一样的感受。我想戏剧就是有这样子的一个魅力，它可以有各种不同的样式，能够让演员自己来开发自己，把自己的潜力来放大。
So it was a very meaningful experience because all these years I've been trying to be this or be that. I was not really, in conversation with myself. Who am I? And this was my opportunity to really look into myself and figure things out.
所以我这一生戏剧对我的帮助以及对我的成长是有非常大的一个力量的，所以我非常开心在今天这个有这个机会跟大家共聚一堂，来聊聊我自己对于戏剧的这些感想心得。这真的是一个很难得的事情，因为不晓得什么时候我们会再相会。
So I am very lucky that I have grown in theater and with theater and from theater. And I really appreciate this wonderful moment because when will we meet again?
那么接下来我们有一小段那个欧兰朵的
This is
这
from
个
Orlando with
视
Robert
频，我
Wilson.
们大家可以看一下。
I want to add something. Just I couldn't resist it. When you saw her performance of the Imperial Concubine, you thought, wow. And that requires so much talent and so much hard work and focus. Oh, I wish I could do that. And how few artists can do that. But she was very bold to let go of that, to abandon that, to start from there and move on to the bad women. And then the crazy women, the woman who killed her own children, right? And then Orlando, with Robert Wilson, if you know his Theater of Light and Shadow. And so I think it takes a lot of courage to leave your comfort zone because she was already successful. She did not have to do that, right? But she did it, and she did an amazing job. Okay, thank you. Okay, so she has an online lesson that you can take if you're interested in learning more. So you can subscribe and sign up online. And then Wang Anqi is a professor, is a great professor, a specialist in Jingju. So you would be able to learn a lot from that.
对，这个呢，这个是我和安琪老师，他从幕后就是编剧，还有台湾的历史来看京剧，来说京剧。我呢是从台前，就是身为一个演员如何把京剧的特色、四大名旦的这个流派的演唱，还有我怎么去演传统戏、演创新戏。那么这个里面的内容非常的丰富，是希望能够让一些不太了解京剧的人，他也能够看得懂，从看热闹变成看门道。这个就是我们想要做这件事情的目的。
So Professor Wang Anqi approached Jingju from the theoretical and historical perspective, and I, as a performer, would approach it as a performance from performance styles. So together we put together a rich contents, and you can learn a lot from it.
好，那我想今天这个演讲的部分呢，就在这里告一个段落了。非常谢谢，非常感谢各位。
Thank you.